frankly, what's been done over the last couple of months since Donald Trump came to power has damaged the chance of peace, has damaged the possibility of an independent future for Ukraine.
Is the government about to agree a trade deal with the European Union which benefits our defence industry at the expense of our fishermen? The Times is reporting this morning that Sir Keir Starmer is close to striking a deal with the EU that would allow British arms companies to sell billions of pounds of weapons to European allies. It's understood that British negotiators have softened their stance on fishing, though. Is that the right approach given the deep global instability we now face? And with diplomatic talks on Ukraine here in the UK later this week, what hope for progress after a brief Easter truce that barely seemed to materialise? The German ambassador Miguel Berger to the UK, Miguel Berger, spoke to us on Times Radio Breakfast last month, where he outlined his views.
We would like to have the United Kingdom as part of future programs, but that would mean also, first, we would need to sign a security and defence agreement between the UK and the EU. This will be part of our reset talks. But it's also the question about the UK share, because obviously EU taxpayers' money cannot go simply into British companies. But we can do it like in the research program Horizon, that the UK can become part of the investment and would pay its fair share in these programs.
That was the German ambassador suggesting the UK might have to pay into any deal if it was going to have access for UK companies. Lord Dannatt, Richard Dannatt, is the former head of the Armed Forces and joins us now for his view. Good morning.
Kate, good morning.
I mean, potentially this could be a really big boost for the UK defence industry. Do you welcome this kind of a deal with the EU?
Well, yes, I do. I welcome it in its own right, but actually I welcome it in a broader context of European security. And first and foremost, in the context of our continued support to Ukraine. We know that the Ukrainians are locked in a deadly and costly war with Russia and fighting for its own sovereignty and fighting for its own rights, but actually also doing so on our behalf as well. And therefore, it absolutely behoves us to support Ukraine as much as we possibly can and get alongside our European friends to make sure that collectively we secure Europe's future, particularly when America, which has underwritten European security for so many decades, now looks like a less certain ally. And therefore, it's actually absolutely up to us Europeans to agree these sort of deals, but also particularly to agree on a common position for European security.
I'm interested in the way that you talk about the UK in the context of Europe. Us Europeans, for example, some people listening to you might think, well, you know, we left the European Union, we wanted to strike out on our own. The UK wanted to be an independent nation. And there is a part of this deal which is about fishing rights, which some people say, you know, deeply, deeply unfair to trade fishing rights, even if it means that UK companies could access this massive defence fund, that the UK is still being held to ransom in a way by the EU.
Yes, you can put it like that, but I think, again, I'm afraid you've got to put everything into perspective. It is a fact that the value of British defence exports in 2023, I understand, were over £14.5 billion compared with 1.7 billion of fish sales. So there is a proportionality issue here. Of course, British fishermen need to be protected. British fishermen need to have access to British waters. But again, we have to put it into the security question. Frankly, what is the value of something like fishing if our overall security is threatened? And you pick up my use of the term we Europeans. Well, we haven't walked away from our responsibilities towards collective European security. And we particularly see that as being an active leading member of NATO. When this country voted to leave the European Union, we voted to do exactly that. We were not voting to walk away from our responsibilities as a reliable partner playing its role within European security. And that's what this refreshed deal is all about, to give the UK access to European money and the European market as far as defence industry is concerned. And although that's important in its own right, it's much more important in the context of us building up our military capability, our capability to support Ukraine even further. And of course, it comes back, Kate, to the issue that underpins all this, and that is the amount of money that we are or are not putting into UK defence. The government is excited by the fact it's moving from 2.3 to 2.5% of GDP on defence, but frankly, that is not enough by a country mile. We should be moving towards 3 or 3.5%, mirroring what other European countries are doing. Those European countries who are genuinely concerned about their security, as indeed we should be. So that is the priority. That is the wider context that we need to look at these things in. Yes, fishing is important, but it's nothing like as important as our overall security and our ability to defend ourselves and to support Ukraine, who is fighting effectively on our behalf.
And talking about supporting Ukraine, there is a key meeting this week on Wednesday here in the UK, led by David Lammy. We understand that Marco Rubio will attend. It's UK, Ukraine, the US, France and Germany trying to talk about a possible peace deal. How likely, how close do you think a peace deal is between Ukraine and Russia?
I'm afraid it's not very close at all. A number of the things that have been said and done by the United States administration has actually weakened the position of Ukraine. In some ways, you could say almost playing to Putin's agenda. Frankly, the way forward is to increase the support to Ukraine, to increase the pressure on Russia, on Putin's economy, and that is the way that will eventually force Putin to come to the negotiating table. Where we are currently is, I'm afraid, talking about peace, but without a proper plan. I'm delighted that this meeting is going to occur in the next few days, but frankly, it's down to America to rethink again its stance with regard to Ukraine, its stance with regard to putting pressure on Russia. And frankly, what's been done over the last couple of months since Donald Trump came to power has damaged the chance of peace, has damaged the possibility of an independent future for Ukraine. And I think people have got to realize that. And if Trump is not going to change his position, then it comes back to what we were talking about 2 or 3 minutes ago. Europe has got to do more. We've got to boost our own defence spending. We've got to boost our own defence capability to support Ukraine and underpin our own collective European security.
Yeah. There are reports this morning in a couple of newspapers that suggest that Donald Trump may have offered to hand over 45,000 square miles of illegally occupied Ukrainian territory to Russia as part of this peace deal, and also ease sanctions on Russia, recognise Crimea formally as Russian, and unfreeze Russian assets. I mean, given that that would be a significant win for President Putin, do you feel at this point that Donald Trump is undermining the efforts of the UK, France and Germany and others to seek a deal which is fair to Ukraine?
Well, Kate, you've just made the point that I was trying to make a little earlier. I believe that a number of Donald Trump's actions have weakened Ukraine's position, have weakened the prospect of a peace agreement.
Is he undermining the UK, though? Is Donald Trump undermining UK efforts here to try and strike this deal for Ukraine?
Well, that's an interesting, rather narrower point. I mean, I think, in fairness to our Prime Minister, he is trying to walk a very difficult path between restoring better relations for legitimate reasons with our European colleagues, but also making sure that the UK has a good relationship with the United States. So I think we have to be quite careful in the language we use, but I believe Keir Starmer is doing his best to tread that difficult line between relations with the EU and relations with the United States.
Can I ask you finally, there's a lot of talk in the US at the moment about the US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth. He's reported to have shared details of an attack, a military attack, not just with the group chat that included a journalist, but also a separate group chat which included his wife and his brother and personal lawyer. If that is true, and it seems from the reporting that it is correct, it is surely A, a huge security breach, and B, something that no US Defence Secretary would be able to survive. He will have to leave that position, will he?
One's beginning to hear Donald Trump even voicing doubts about his own defense secretary. I mean, to be honest, if you're in a very senior position like that, you've got to be really careful about the means with which you communicate, the groups that you share information with, and of course I don't know, if this second signal group was set up with the wide range of people that were included in it and sensitive information was shared, this is very serious and this undoubtedly is wrong. And if you've got a defense secretary doing wrong things, then I think, frankly, any president or prime minister should be looking for a new defense chief.
Lord Dannatt, many thanks for your time on the programme. Great to have you this morning.
Thanks, Kate.
He says that Britain has to be careful with his words about Donald Trump and Ukraine, which I'm sure is right. But the overwhelming impression that we've got on this programme, I think, Donald Trump does not give a toss about Ukraine. Never has done, never will do. He wants to do a deal because he likes to do deals. He wants to have Russia back on the stage because he wants to try and make money out of Russia. He does not want to do anything to support Ukraine in and of itself. He doesn't think there's an issue of morals or ethics or right and wrong.
Well, I thought that Alexander Vindman, who was in Trump's team the first time round, had a really valid point on this, which is that Donald Trump is a man who likes a quick deal, an easy win, and that potentially he thought that Ukraine and Russia, that there would be, with Putin, an easy way to win a deal. It's evidently not turned out to be the case, and now we are starting to see this rhetoric from the American side that Trump could walk away, he may well wash his hands of it, he might not be interested anymore. He's trying to force this meeting on Wednesday to a head, suggesting that a deal could be done this week. But if you listen to those on the UK side, UK defence sources will tell you this deal is not, it's not close. And the meeting this week is unlikely to result in a formal deal, not least because Russia is not included in those talks.
Yeah, Dannatt made it exactly that point. William Haye's got a great column in the paper today where he says Trump operates, and this is no more than common sense here, but Trump operates on a different timetable. So he operates on a social media, Ritalin-fueled, absolutely 20-second attention span. And if you want to do a deal that lasts like South Korea, North Korea, it takes years and years and years. It doesn't just fit in a social media post, and that's a big problem.